All right, y'all. I'm going to keep on doing this. I think some of you, this is like a niche interest. Some of you might be as old or nearly as old as me, or might just have an interest in cinema, and so this might be interesting to that niche. That niche of a niche, which is my regular audience. I already have an extremely niche audience, which means a small audience. But I enjoy doing this, and so I'm going to keep doing it until I don't anymore. And what I'm doing is every year that I can recall, ever since I started paying attention to movies, ever since movies became something that I really spent, almost like I'd be at the movies pretty much every weekend or thereabouts, and be renting movies too and stuff. That started around 1986, and so last time in the last segment of this series, I thought I was beginning with 1986, and I said my favorite movie from 1986 was The Untouchables, but it was pointed out to me that I was very wrong, that The Untouchables was actually a 1987 movie. So let me just double back first to 1986, since that was the year that said I was going to start with, and tell you what I think what my favorite movie from 1986 was. And I think my favorite movie from 1986, the one that I remember was a standout, is The Mosquito Coast. This is a really interesting, challenging, disturbing movie, subject matter wise and book wise. It was a book first, which I've since also read. Well, actually, I read it in the last couple of years, but I was very intrigued by the central character, and I think who was played by Harrison Ford, played very well by Harrison Ford. This is probably the performance of his lifetime. I don't know if he ever played a character that was quite as much of a challenge as it was to play this guy. The character that he plays is somebody who's just extreme, who's extremely fed up with society and thinks that America's going to die out in the next couple of years. So he takes his family and takes them with him. Isn't really interested in what they want, because this guy's a really difficult person. He's really a bastard, really. But there's something compelling about him at the same time. He's brilliant. He's an inventor, but he's extremely monomaniacal. Like they say about Ahab, Captain Ahab in Moby Dick. Monomaniacal, focused on one thing to the exclusion of all others. And for him, it's finding somewhere, in the wilderness, in the jungle, where he can, work on his inventions and basically get what he wants and have his way, and not have to play by anybody else's rules. Which, in a way, it sounds really admirable, and in a way, it is. But at the same time, he's just an extremely selfish and compassionless person. And when things are going well, he's at his best. But then when things start to fall apart, he's got too much pride to have to say, we've got to go back to. His family's begging because they're really struggling to get by. They're like wandering around in the wilderness, lost. And he says, no, we can't go back to America because America's been bombed. He just makes it up. He makes up this stuff just to justify having to stay out here in the Central American wilderness. And so so I really was interested in this character, and even when I was like 15 years old, when I was watching this movie, it was like at the time people were saying, "Oh, this guy's such a jerk. He's such an asshole. He's so awful." And I was thinking, well, he is, but then there's something also, he's more complicated than that. There's something tragic about him, and I think this is captured really well. And I think Harrison Ford, in an interview on the subject, I think it was with that annoying inside the actor studio, that guy. He says he's a maddening character, and Harrison Ford said, "Well, he's a tragic character," and I felt vindicated when I heard that, because I was thinking all along, yeah, yeah, he is ultimately tragic. Also, this movie featured River Phoenix, who was very much the heartthrob at at that period of time. Of teenage girls. He was actually a good actor, though, and of course, Joaquin's older brother, who died tragically and somewhat mysteriously in the early '90s. All right, so that's my favorite from 1986. Now let's go forward in time. Last time I ended with 1989, so let's go to 1990. 1990 was a good year for movies. I have 4 movies that all of whom are contending for movie of the year, but I can only pick one, so I'm going to list 3 runner-ups and then tell you the movie that I picked for the movie of the year. My first runner-up is Paul Verhoeven's Total Recall. Now, this is the one I was initially thinking, yeah, 1990, that's going to be the movie of the year for 1990. And then I noticed there are all these other movies that I really liked, that I liked more, actually. But Total Recall is it's again like Paul Verhoeven's all of his fare, all when he moved from Holland to Hollywood and decided to make like shoot 'em up action adventure science fiction movies that were sort of that were really dumb on the one hand and really smart on the other hand, that could be enjoyed just in a very basic sort of way, in a very dumb kind of way, but also could be appreciated for a certain sophistication. That was there even among all of the violence and all of some of the ridiculous dialogue, and he was always self-conscious, I think, about it. He knew what he was doing, and it was something really kind of different. Total Recall tells a story of a guy who's living what he thinks is just a normal, boring life in the future, just a regular working class guy, and then it turns out, and then he goes to a place called Recall, where you can where they put you out and you live in your mind for a few days. You live this adventure out in your mind, but it turns out, but he was already somebody else, and it turns out he's had this other consciousness imprinted into his memory now. So when he goes to Recall, he spazzes out and then remembers this old self that he had, and his old self communicates with him and tells him he needs to go to Mars to do this, that, and the other thing, and it's a wild and crazy and very very complex sort of thing. There's a camp level to it. There's some really weird scenes that border on parody. There's like this wise Yoda-like character who ends up being living on the back of a mutant's, like he's like a Siamese twin with some mutant guy, but he lives on his back. It's totally bizarre. Um, but also this movie has one of the greatest scenes in cinema that I know of, where, as you maybe can tell if you haven't seen this movie, there's a lot of the question about what's real and what isn't. You know, is this guy living reality right now, or is he actually, you know, is he actually under? Has he been put under, and is he, uh, uh, living out this what they call the mind trip? Um, but a man comes and tells him, you know, very authoritatively that he needs to give himself up because he's actually, you know, he's on the point of a psychotic break. He's actually lying in a hospital room, and he's about to just lose it totally unless he, you know, gives up and gives himself over to the authorities, and then they'll help wake him up and bring him back to his regular life. And the guy speaks very compellingly and very authoritatively, and seems like, and his our hero is about to maybe do what he's saying, but then he looks at him again and notices there's a bead of sweat coming down his face, and that clues him in. That clues us in to the fact that, you know, this guy's not just a projection, like he claims to be. He's an actual person, and he's actually sweating because this is a stressful moment. And then he knows what's up, but he never totally knows what's up, and we never know either. The way that it ends, we're not sure. Ultimately, we think that we know what reality is and isn't, but it's not totally clear, and it's done in a way that seems kind of ridiculous on one level, and is also really kind of very imaginative and very compelling on the other hand. Now, I think this movie is hurt a little bit by Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the main role. I think it would have been better if somebody more unassuming was in the lead, and less, you know, this big hulking Austrian muscle man type of guy. But it probably wouldn't have sold nearly as many tickets, so there's that. All right, so Total Recall is one runner-up from 1990. The other runner-up from 1990, this is going from one extreme to the other. Total Recall was this, this high-budget sci-fi movie, lots of action, lots of special effects. And the next movie I'm going to talk about is called Metropolitan. It was the first movie ever made by the director Whit Stillman. And I remember seeing this movie and just being under its spell. It had this charm, and it had this there was something about it that really stood out. Whit Stillman characters, you know, tend to be young, sophisticated. They talk in complete sentences. They tend to be good looking, and intellectual. And this is a movie that's just about a bunch of young people, they call they're guys who and girls who live in New York and who meet on regular occasions at these debutante balls. And there's one guy in the group who sort of doesn't really thinks of himself as better than them, and he has all these. He likes to read Fourier, who's this utopian socialist thinker, but but the way this movie portrays these characters, it gives them humanity. Doesn't just gloss. So it doesn't just say, "Oh, these are a bunch of rich white people." Don't pay any attention to them, or look down on them. Feel scorn against them because they're privileged or whatever. Um, there's it very much bucks the trend in that sense. Now, this is a very talky movie. There's lots. It's very dialogue heavy. In fact, the dialogue is pretty much everything in it. There's a kind of story. It just plays out over the course of several times. This group of young people get together over the course of I guess maybe a year or so, um, and but it's really not so much plot driven as it is character driven, dialogue driven, and it's something that you either. I mean, I could seeing this movie and just thinking, oh, this is so boring. These people are just talking all the time, and they don't talk like normal people talk. Like I said, they use complete sentences. They're very sophisticated. They're also very funny. It's a funny, it's a very dryly funny film. Um, so it's something that I guess you either love or you don't, and I loved it. All right. Another movie from 1990 that I really liked a lot is Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas. What can I really say about Goodfellas? I mean, I'm not, I don't have any kind of particular affection for gangster movies per se, uh, but I am very much a Scorsese, uh, uh, fanatic, especially earlier in my life. I think, as a younger man, was really a big Scorsese fan after I saw Taxi Driver, and Raging Bull and The King of Comedy. That was the holy trinity. Really, brought me in. And I think last time I talked about The Last Temptation of Christ, which was not particular critical success or audience success. In fact, it was heavily censored back in 1988 because of the subject matter. Goodfellas was sort of his comeback. It was considered his return to form. It's still a classic movie. Even now, it's got tons of scenes that are iconic. The long tracking shot where Ray Liotta is taking his is it Liotta or Leota? I don't know. Where he's taking his date to this club, and the tracking shot follows them as they're walking all the way through, and it's just this huge scene with tons of characters. And then there's the scene, also the famous scene, which you can probably find on YouTube, I'm guessing, where he's talking about all of the guys who make up this segment of the kind of people that the people that he hangs out with who are affiliated with the mob in some way or other. And Johnny two times, who says everything two times, and then it pans from him to somebody else, and he's introducing them as it goes along. And not much I can really add about Goodfellas right now. Some very shocking scenes. I talked last time about the Untouchables and the baseball bat scene. There's a couple of scenes like that in this movie that it mixes up some very funny moments with some very disturbing violence. And Joe Pesci, who we think of as sort of just this little harmless little this guy with a high pitched voice, and just this schlemiel schlemiely guy. But in this movie, he's like really scary and really sadistically evil, just a creep, but also funny. Um, so he's making all these jokes and saying all these things and that are making you laugh, and then the next minute he's doing some really brutal, shocking act of violence. A scene where he shoots a young boy in the foot, uh, trying to get him to dance, uh, and yeah, it's really that scene still stays with me. Just really shocking. Um, yeah, so that's Goodfellas. So all those movies are good. The three that I've said so far: Total Recall, Metropolitan, Goodfellas. But my favorite movie from 1990 is Richard Linklater's Slacker. I think I've talked about Slacker before. I've probably done a video about it before. Um, Now, Slacker is a movie that you can see on YouTube in its entirety for free. Just type Slacker movie into the search engine, and it'll come up. And you can watch it all for free. Now, Slacker, like Metropolitan, is a movie that's not for everybody, but I loved it, and I still love it. And like Metropolitan, it's dialogue heavy, but it's much more experimental, or the conceit of it is what happens in the movie is it's all set in the city of Austin, Texas, which at the time in the I think it was filmed in the late 80s, was not as annoying a place as it is now. I hear a lot about Austin, and it sounds like a really kind of irritating place. But at the time, I think it had a little bit more charm, and it was it's a college town, so there's lots of people wandering around philosophizing and saying this and saying that, and there's the concept of the movie is you go from one group of characters, you follow them around for a couple minutes, and then and then they come across some other group of characters, and then you follow them, and then on like that for, I guess, around 90 minutes. So by the time it's over, there have been hundreds of characters who you've seen, and some of them are very amusing. A lot of them are obsessive about various things like serial killings and there's one guy who walks past a couple of women, and one woman says to the other one, that person is going to be dead within a fortnight. And then he has all these, he just has terrible luck. He tries to get he puts his quarters to get a newspaper, but the machine won't open. And then he goes into a restaurant, and some crazy lady starts yelling at him, and a crazy guy starts yelling at him, and it's just, he just seems like somebody who's just having all this terrible, all of these unfortunate things happen to him, and you can see why he might be dead within a fortnight. So, again, Slacker, like Metropolitan, is dialogue heavy. Definitely not much. I mean, there are themes there's like a scene where this guy goes on and on about the JFK assassination. Like, that's the only thing he ever talks about to anyone is the conspiracy that probably happened with the JFK assassination. And then we meet these other couple of guys who just are into cars, and like everything they say is that they go to to a junkyard and get a lot of stuff, and then they talk about their all these, all this car related jargon that doesn't make sense to most people. You'd almost need a subtitle to translate it, and it goes on and on from there. So Slacker is my movie of 1990. Okay, moving on. 1991, I'm going to go with Barton Fink. This is the Coen brothers. This is actually probably my favorite Coen brothers movie, and it's a dark horse. Most people who are into the Coen brothers, they say Fargo, or what was the one about the bowling, the Big Lebowski, or maybe even Raising Arizona. But to me, Barton Fink is my favorite, and this is about a guy who is this very. I've written an article about Barton Fink, so you can find it on my Substack page if you're interested. It's about this left-wing, Jewish writer, playwright, modeled after Clifford Odets. And he gets this invitation to write for Hollywood movies, which is what a lot of, some playwrights at the time, or some novelists at the time, were getting these kinds of offers, and then ending up in Hollywood and just finding that it's this dead end, or this town that sucks your soul from your body. And that's basically what happens to Barton Fink, even though it's a very convoluted movie that's difficult to follow. And it's hard to know, I guess, kind of like Total Recall, although it's paced very differently. But it's a little hard to know ultimately what's real and what isn't by the time it's over. Barton has this sort of breakdown. At first, the big studio heads are like fawning over him, but then in the end, when he writes what he thinks is his masterpiece, they just think, nah, I don't know, and now we're not going to do anything with this, but we're going to keep you under contract. So he's basically shackled to this thing, and he's there's also a supporting there's a character played by John Goodman in a supporting role. Sorry, I lost the ability to talk there for a minute. And he plays a guy who seemed like just a normal, regular, down-to-earth, salt-of-the-earth kind of guy. The kind of guy that Barton Fink is supposedly, writing his plays for. But, of course, Barton is just this big snob. So he looks down on this character and thinks that he's beneath him. And then he finds out that this guy is nothing like he reckoned him as being. And a lot of what happens actually is, Barton Fink getting his comeuppance, even though he's not a terrible guy. He has some very obvious flaws. And one of them is that he's told you don't listen. And he learns the importance of listening and the importance of paying attention to what's actually in front of him, and not just, seeing it in his own, cloistered, closed off kind of way. So 1991, my movie of the year is Barton Fink. All right, moving on to 1982. I think this will be the last year that I do, because we're coming up on the half-hour mark, and this is already longer than I wanted to go, and I wanted to cover a couple more years.